So we're going to install Server 2016 Server Core, all the way formerly known as Server Core. Now it's just called Standard. So we're going to do the same thing. So all these are in the same steps. So I'm going to kind of go through these very quickly. New virtual machine, 2000 Windows Workstation 12. Install the operating system later. Choosing 2016. I'm going to call this DC2. I'm naming this one DC2, so I'm called DC2. And again, take your time on this step. It's just really super important. Making a new folder called DC2. Next several screens are all defaults. I'm going to choose to store it as a single file and then click finish all the way through it. I'm clicking on my CD DVD drive up on top. I'm choosing the exact same ISO image. There is no ISO image difference between the server core and the desktop experience. And I go ahead and power on the machine.
I'm sorry, this is called...
Okay, continuing on the same languages and currency and keyboard as before, and we're going to install it. We're going to choose just the standard evaluation. So it doesn't say anything behind it, but that really is the server core. Go ahead and click next. Read the license agreement. It's actually the same as last one, so since you read that one, you can just click OK. And then custom install on my 60 gig hard drive and let it copy the files. It will actually copy faster because there's less to copy. So right now it's just installing the operating system itself and the services, but doesn't have to install any graphical user interface files. So there's physically less files that it's going to copy. When I took a look at this earlier today when I was playing with this, the 2016 server took up 10 gig of disk space, and the 2016 core took up 6.5 gigs. So it's substantially less. If you think of percentage-wise, in reality it saves 4 gigs of space. I'm not sure if that's a huge amount, but... Okay, so after reboots, it comes up to a command prompt only. Just like before, it asks you to change the administrator's password. The user's password must be changed before signing in, so you just click OK. And I have to type in a new password. We will use our complex password. There's no little I thing to double check you're right, but it does tell me that your administrator password has been changed. You go ahead and click OK. And that's what you get. That's your entire environment. This is it. No start button, no taskbar, no clock, no nothing. This is it. So we still want to do the same things as we did before. The first thing is to do is remove the CD-ROM drive. Now that's a virtual machine thing. So all I have to do is go up to the menu up on top, go up to VM, go to settings, and then say remove the CD-ROM by unconnecting the ISO image. So that's essentially the same thing. What also I'm going to do here is install the drivers. Now, even in a command prompt environment, I can still install a CD into my drive, and I do that by clicking on VM Install VMware Tools. And it mounts a virtual CD-ROM drive in my virtual CD. But nothing happens. It's still there though. If you're familiar with the command prompt, I can get to my D drive just like before. I could get to my D drive by going to File Explorer, then clicking on D. In the command prompt, you get to your D drive by doing D:, and hitting Enter. To see if anything's there, what do I type to see if anything's there? dir, directory. ls is Linux. I don't know if it'll work on here. No, it might work in PowerShell though. PowerShell is kind of a mix between command prompt and Linux, but yeah, directory is definitely command prompt. And you can see that the programs are there. I can't double click on setup64, but I can run setup64 by just typing in setup64. You'll know that you changed drives because here it says C: users administrator. After you're hitting D: it switches to D. So now I'm on my D drive. You don't have to do a directory. You can run programs without seeing them. It's just kind of comforting knowing that it's really there and that everything got it kind of mounted properly. So I want to run setup 64. So setup 64 and just hit enter. And I still do have an operating system that supports a graphical interface. It's going to bring up the VMware tool installer in the background. So it's still there. It's just behind everything. But there's no taskbar to tell you that. So you can minimize. You can still hit the minimize button, and it doesn't take it down to the taskbar. That's not a taskbar down there. It just threw it on the screen. There is no taskbar. So, but I can go through this, click next, next, install. It does update the video drivers, even though I have a black screen with command prompt.
Hey, you want those high-res black pixels?
See? See that? Now I have more black pixels. And I click finish, and I can restart. So it's going to restart.
So how would you restart from the command prompt? Just type in restart or?
So when you come back in, it still has the Control-Alt-Delete. So again, Control-Alt-Insert will be your virtual machine key combination. So Control-Alt-Insert brings you to the password and allows you to log in, and now you're back to your command prompt. So what I've done so far is just done all the basics before I even start configuration, such as remove the CD-ROM, install the Windows CD-ROM, and then install the drivers. What do I do next? All the basic configurations, the initial configuration tasks, like renaming the computer and things like that. Some of these things can be done from the command prompt. In fact, that's kind of what they want. So I want to rename my computer. And so from the command prompt, I can use a rename computer command. You don't have to write these down. This will not be in the exam. But in order to use the rename computer command, you have to know your current computer name. So to get your current computer name, you use host name. And that shows you your current computer name. Then to rename your computer, you use the netdom command. And then the actual command would be rename computer. And you use your current computer name first. Oh, this is going to be fun. For I1 TD8R2GDQ, and then I'm going to do a / new name : and I'm going to have a DC2. The operation will rename the computer to DC2, and then says, are you sure you want to do that? Because this could actually impact some things. This is a brand new install, so we're actually fine. So I go ahead and click yes. And then it does say that you need to restart your computer to make this take effect. So all I have to do is just go to the start button and click restart. And there's no start button. Starting it. So I have to use the command prompt to restart my computer as well. So if I want to restart my computer, guess what command I'd use?
Restart.
No, shutdown. I don't make this stuff up. Okay, it's shut down, but I use a parameter called /r, and that means restart. So I'm doing a shutdown command, but I'm really not shutting down, I'm restarting. And you do have to include a time configuration, like when do you want to restart? Like 0 would be now, 15 would be 15 seconds from now, 30 seconds, a minute from now, or whatever. So we're going to put a 0 and it's going to restart the computer. So that's how you restart it. To do a shutdown instead of a restart, it's the same command, but instead of an /r, it's a /s. So it's shutdown /s to actually shut down the computer. It's pretty small for doing this. So now, does that look like fun? Do I want to do all those lengthy commands for renaming computer? No, that's not very fun. Let's just talk quickly. What are the advantages of having the server core, though?
Faster.
It's faster. Why is it faster?
There's less crap.
less junk there. There's no graphical user interface. I don't have to have that whole layer of software running, waiting for mouse inputs and all that kind of stuff. It's just very, very simple. It's much smaller also. Okay, what else?
I imagine if you know what you're doing, it's more efficient because you're going directly to the place that you.
Absolutely, you're going directly to the place that you want instead of having to go like, oh, click this, open that, blah, 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 all over the place. What's the downside of it?
It's hard.
It's hard. Well, you have to know what you're doing. Yes.
Really quick, it's rename computer, then your computer name, space, slash.
There's ways of doing this from the time. You can there's commands that you can do from time that you actually change the time or time zone. The thing with the time zone is you have to type out the time zone, like Central Standard Time, and type all that out within quotes, and it's just very cumbersome. But you might have to do that. Within the command line environment, within the server core environment, there are some like GUI applets that you can run. We sort of saw that a little bit with the installation of VMware tools. But you can run several of the control panel applets right from here as well. And this is just one example in the learning plan. Is a control time date and then control panel applet, and it actually brings up the applet. And so it's like, hey, I like this. That's way better than doing set time zone equal central standard blah blah blah. And so now I can change my time zone. So it gives me a command prompt. So central time, click OK. The time is correct, so I go ahead and click OK. To see if the time is right, I can click time, and that's that. Okay, another way of doing it, which is kind of cheating in a way. It's not cheating, it's taking advantage of the tools that are provided. And it is, in fact, a utility called sconfig for server configuration. And all those things that we just did, we can do through a menu-based, a text-based menu system. It's not graphical user interface. At least some of these aren't, but it does give you some ability to easily make these changes. So if you go sconfig, you can see that the computer name has already been changed, but I could change it if I want by just hitting the number 2 and hitting enter, and it says, what's the new computer name? And you can go ahead and type it in. If you don't want to make any changes, it says blank equals cancel. So it means don't make any changes, and that's what I want to do. If I want to join a domain, I'd hit number 1, and we're going to do that later on some other day. Kind of going down the list, other things that I would do is probably the network settings, right? If I have network settings, I'm going to want to change the IP address to have a static IP address. So I'm going to hit number 8. Why do I hit 8 and number 2 comes up? Oh, numlock. That's why. 8. Now, watching these steps pretty closely is pretty important. It does tell you what to do, but again, it's an unfamiliar interface, and so just be careful with this. People, will immediately start typing an IP address in here, like, oh, 192.168. That's not what it's asking. It's asking, which of those NICs listed do you want to configure? It should be pretty easy because you should only have one. Now, most of yours should say 1. It might say 0, or it might say 10, or it might have some other index number. You have a 0. That's fine. So watch the index number. It's just that number of that device. So go ahead and hit the number of the index number of the adapter that you want to use. And in this case, mine is going to be 1. And this is my current settings. It is DHCP enabled, which means it's going to automatically grab an address. And, and in this case, it grabbed 192.168.118.136. This is a server. I can't have a DHCP. I can't have a random address on a server. You need to know what that server is all the time. So we're going to manually set this. We set this by hitting number 1, set the network adapter address. And now it's going to ask you, is this going to be static or DHCP? And so I would choose S for static. Because I chose static, it now asks you for an IP address. So there's lots of menus that you have to go through to do this. And so my address will be 192.168.118.13 according to my documentation. And to the subnet mask, it's saying type it in or just hit enter. if you want to accept the default address of 255.255.255.0, which is fine. And then the default gateway is 192.168.118.2. On a regular network configuration screen, right on that same dialog box, it asks you for DNS information. Here, it's separate. It's a separate menu item. It's number 2. So to set the DNS servers, you have to hit number 2. And it's going to be 192.168.118.2. And there's not going to be a second one. So we just hit enter to leave it blank for no secondary DNS. We will have a secondary DNS later on in the semester, but right now we only have a single point of presence out to the internet. So step number 3 says clear DNS server settings. So if you want to clear those out, you could. You could always go back into number 1 and change it back to DHCP or change it to a different static address. When you are done, it says number 4 to take you back to the main menu. Going down the numbers, it doesn't show you the date and time on here, but if I hit number 9 for date and time, let's click in here, 9. It actually brings up the same command applet, which is kind of interesting. So there is not a text-based version of this. It brings you into this. But I can see that, in fact, it is the right time. It is the right time zone, so I can go ahead and click OK. Other things, I can log off a user, log off myself as a user from R12. If you can't remember that whole shutdown /R whatever, you can go to sconfig and hit number 13 to restart the server. So there's any one command that you should know, it's sconfig, because there you can shut down the server by hitting number 14 or restart the server by hitting 13. To exit back to the command prompt, you hit number 15, and now you're back in the command prompt, and now you can do all kinds of like fun directory stuff, change directories, and just have all kinds of good time. And then when you're done, you just type exit, and then you don't have a command prompt anymore. That's okay. Let's go to the start button and right click and now what?
Control-Alt-Insert.
Control-Alt-Delete in the real world, or Control-Alt-Insert in the virtual world, brings me to Task Manager. Ooh, yes, a text-based Task Manager. Well, it's actually the menu prior to Task Manager. This is where you can change your password or lock your screen or sign out or switch user, but you have Task Manager on there. And then you get that.
Oh my God.
Yes. Yeah, this is the new Task Manager in Windows 10. It might be in Windows 8. I don't know that. And it's really nice in some regards. So it shows you just your applications that are running. So you can click on it and click End, and you're kind of done. We're IT professionals. We need more. We need to be able to see what's going on and to be able to add tasks. So we're going to click on the More Details. And that brings us to the stuff that we know and love. And so realize that there is that more tasks on there, more details. So this is what comes up by default when you do Control-Delete / Control-Insert. Make sure you go to more details to show you, oh yeah, what's locked up here. I can see this and whatever. Also from here, you can stop processes. From here, you can only stop applications. So that's kind of a difference as well. But also from here, you can add tasks. You can create new ones. So I can go to File, Run a New Task. I can do CMD, and there's my command prompt. What's really, really nice is that I can run multiple command prompts. Why would one do that? Well, say that you're running sconfig over here. That's tying up that command prompt. You can't do any. You can't make folders while you have sconfig running, so you can be over here making directories and deleting stuff and whatever. You could be running, you know, whatever commands you want to be running. You could be doing that whole net dom rename computer, and then get sidetracked of wanting to ping something, you know, 8.8.8.8. And sconfig's over there. Pinging is running. I should have that constantly run. And then meanwhile over here, you know, just to make it look cool, you know.
You look like you're real smart.
Even if it's not doing anything, it's just, yeah. right? Do a couple of those and have this on the screen. I'll make that down here so you can see it. And right. Yeah, it makes you look smart, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's what you can do. So, and then you can just close the windows that you don't want. And you can start new ones again if you want as well. So that's how you do that. That's how you work with the command prompt. You do have PowerShell in here as well. You do have to run it though, PowerShell. It doesn't change the blue background like the rest of the PowerShell screens do, but you know you're in PowerShell because you have a PS in front of it. So you can do your PowerShell commands. If you type exit once, it'll exit PowerShell, and if you exit a second time, they'll exit the command prompt. To shut down, we already saw the restart command. If I want to do an actual shutdown, I can do shutdown/S for shutdown. Again, you have to specify a time. When it's all closed, I can do a snapshot. Let me close that out, and let's just take a look at the files again, the file sizes. So here's my H drive, server admin 2. For DC1 is just about 10 gigs, 9.94. DC2 is 6.5. So it's smaller. I mean, whether 4 gigs is a considerable amount, I don't know. But when you talk about an operating system, everything you can give to the services, the better. One thing we haven't talked about, and I'm going to let you do this on your own if you so choose. Just because you install it as a server core doesn't mean it has to stay as a server core. You can install the graphical user interface onto it. In the learning plan under section 6.5, it tells you sort of that process of doing that. These are actually the commands from Server 2012. I haven't tried them in 2016 yet. I imagine they'd be pretty much the same. But there's really 3 levels of the graphical user interface. There's none, and then there's everything, and then there's one in between. And it's sort of designated that way. So looking at the, well, here, let's bring it on the screen. So for a minimal install, what you're doing is you're installing the GUI management infrastructure. That's going to give you GUI tools for your services. So you're not going to have the full Windows graphical user interface, but it's going to give you a minimal graphical user interface for just the tools that you want. So it's kind of a halfway between. So you're going to have graphical tools, but you're not going to have the whole graphical Windows environment, but you don't care. Most of the time you're not in the Windows environment, you're in the tools on the server. Then if you added the server GUI shell, that's the shell, that's everything. So the whole Windows environment is going to be there. You can remove them in the reverse order as well. So if you have, I could take my domain controller 1 and remove or uninstall the server GUI shell, and that would get rid of the shell part or the operating system GUI part, but retain the tools GUI part. Or if I want to get rid of it altogether, you know what? I want to set it up using graphical user interface. Now that it's all set up and going, let me strip all this stuff out. I'll remove the server GUI management infrastructure and the server GUI shell components, and then you're going to end up with just the command prompt, and you're going to be running just as the server core. Other pros and cons about the server core, obviously, you know, the footprint is smaller, but so is the target as far as being able to attack it. The attack threshold is much smaller. There's less services running, less things that people can manipulate. Also, just looking at the server core, people are probably less inclined to just peruse around the command prompt as they would just kind of peruse around a Windows environment, deleting stuff, copying things, moving things around, or whatever. So